3 a.m. You're staring at your phone, scrolling through contacts, looking for someone who believes in you, someone who'll invest, someone who'll mentor you, someone who'll just listen. And you realize something that makes your chest tight. There's no one. Your parents think you're wasting time. Your friends stopped answering. That person you thought was your mentor ghosted you after 3 messages. And society keeps screaming the same garbage. Network, build relationships, find your tribe. But what happens when your tribe doesn't exist? Machiavelli spent his last years in exile, tortured, broke, abandoned by every ally he ever had. And from that position, that absolute zero, he wrote The Prince. 5 centuries later, billionaires, presidents, and generals still study his work in private. Meanwhile, the people who abandoned him? Forgotten. Dust. Here's what he understood that nobody wants to tell you. The moment you need others, you become controllable. The moment you're alone, you become dangerous. If that makes you uncomfortable, leave now. But if it makes you curious, I'm about to show you something most people will reject because it's too real. You know that feeling when you finally admit to yourself that nobody's coming. Not as some dramatic realization, just a quiet, cold fact you can't ignore anymore. Most people hit this point and collapse. They spiral into depression. They blame their circumstances. They wait. They hope. They pray. And they stay stuck. But there's a different response. Rare. Maybe 1%. They look at that empty room, that silent phone, that bank account with 2 digits, and something flips inside them. Not motivation, not positivity, something colder, something sharper. They stop waiting for permission. They stop explaining their vision to people who don't care. They stop performing for an audience that isn't watching, and they disappear. Machiavelli called this necessity, not choice, necessity. When you have options, you stay soft, you negotiate, you compromise, you adjust your dreams to fit other people's comfort zones. But when you have nothing, when every door is closed, when every hand you reached for pulled away, that's when you become something different. Not better, not worse, just undeniable. I've seen this play out dozens of times. Someone loses their job, gets dumped, moves to a new city where they know no one, and for 6 months they're invisible. No posts, no updates, no explanations. Then one day they resurface with a business doing 6 figures, a skill set that makes them irreplaceable, a confidence that doesn't need validation, and everyone who ignored them suddenly wants to know the secret. There is no secret, just silence, work, pain, and the refusal to beg. Here's what nobody tells you about support. It's not free. Every mentor wants credit. Every investor wants control. Every friend wants their opinion to matter more than your instinct. You think you're building a foundation, but you're actually building dependencies. And the moment those people leave, and they always do eventually, your foundation cracks. Machiavelli warned about this constantly. He said a prince who relies on borrowed armies never owns his victories. The same applies to borrowed money, borrowed advice, borrowed confidence. If you didn't build it yourself, you don't really have it. Let me ask you something. Why does everyone push this idea that you need people? From the moment you're born, the system is designed to make you dependent. School teaches you to work in groups, not alone. Religion teaches you to join congregations, not think independently. Business culture teaches you that networking is everything. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That phrase right there, that's the lie that keeps you powerless. Because here's the truth, independent people are dangerous. A person who doesn't need approval can't be manipulated. A person who doesn't need resources can't be controlled. A person who doesn't need validation can't be guilt-tripped into obedience. So society spends your entire childhood convincing you that isolation equals failure, that being alone means something's wrong with you, that needing others is natural, healthy, even virtuous. But Machiavelli saw through this 500 years ago. He understood that dependence is just control with a friendly mask. Think about what happens when you ask someone for help. You're automatically positioning yourself below them. You're signaling weakness. And even if they help, you're now in debt. Not just money, psychologically. You owe them. They know it, you know it. And the moment helping you stops benefiting them, they'll walk away. People don't operate on gratitude. They operate on self-interest. I'll tell you what this looks like in our culture specifically. Your parents want you to follow a safe path, not because it's best for you, because it's best for their reputation. Your relatives ask why you're not married yet, not because they care about your happiness, but because your choices make them uncomfortable. Your friends tell you to be realistic, not because they're protecting you, but because your ambition makes them feel inadequate. And you're supposed to call this support? This is sabotage dressed up as concern. Machiavelli's advice was simple. Rely only on what you control, not on allies who might betray you, not on fortune that changes, not on others who prioritize themselves. Only on your own capability and preparation. In modern terms, don't build your business on someone else's platform. Don't build your skills based on someone else's approval. Don't build your confidence on someone else's opinion. Build everything yourself, brick by brick, alone, in silence, until you're so undeniable that support becomes irrelevant. Here's something Machiavelli understood that modern psychology finally caught up to. Silence is a weapon. Not the dramatic kind where you announce you're going silent. The real kind, where you just stop showing up, stop posting, stop explaining, stop seeking validation for your ideas. You disappear completely. And while everyone else is performing their ambitions on social media, you're building yours in the dark. There's a reason for this. Every time you talk about what you're going to do, your brain releases dopamine. It feels like you've already accomplished something. You get the emotional reward without doing the work, so you talk more and execute less. You perform ambition instead of practicing it. Machiavelli knew this instinctively. He knew that people who announce their plans rarely achieve them. They're too busy managing perception. I call this the ghost phase, and it's not optional if you're serious. You stop telling people what you're working on. You stop asking for opinions. You stop sharing your progress. Not because you're ashamed, but because you're protecting your energy. Every conversation about your goals is energy that should go into your goals. Every explanation to a skeptic is time stolen from execution. Every performance for social approval is a distraction from actual results. Let me tell you what happens when you go ghost. First, people assume you've given up. They write you off. Some of them feel relieved because your ambition made them uncomfortable. Others feel vindicated because they never believed in you anyway. And that's perfect, because now you're completely off their radar. No one's watching, no one's judging, no one's offering their useless advice. You're free to fail 100 times without an audience. You're free to experiment without explaining yourself. You're free to become someone completely different until it's done. This silence also acts as a filter. Anyone who only cared about you when you were visible, they were never real. They were just audience members. Real support doesn't need constant updates. But here's the thing. You're not looking for support anyway. You're looking for sovereignty, complete ownership of your path, and that only happens in isolation. Machiavelli thrived after his exile, not despite the isolation, but because of it. No distractions, no politics, no one to perform for, just him and the truth. That's where real power gets built. Most people treat emotional pain like poison. They run from it. They numb it with distractions, substances, relationships, anything to avoid feeling it. But pain is actually the cleanest fuel you have. Anger, rejection, humiliation, envy, these emotions that society tells you to suppress, they're raw energy. And if you know how to channel them, they become unstoppable momentum. Machiavelli believed that great men are driven by necessity, not comfort. Comfort makes you lazy. Pain makes you focused. When you're supported, you can afford to coast. When you're alone, you can't afford a single wasted day. This pressure, this constant edge of survival, it sharpens you in ways comfort never could. Every person who doubted you becomes a name on a list. Every door that closed becomes proof you're going in a direction most people are too afraid to follow. Every rejection becomes fuel. Psychologists have a term for this: sublimation. It's when you take socially unacceptable emotions and channel them into productive output. But Machiavelli didn't need modern psychology to understand this. He lived it. His entire political career was destroyed. His writings were banned. His name became synonymous with evil. And 500 years later, we're still reading his work. Why? Because he turned his exile into immortality. He used rejection as raw material for greatness. You can do the same thing. When someone dismisses your ambition, don't argue. Remember, when someone laughs at your struggle, don't defend yourself. Work harder. When someone tells you that you need their help, prove them wrong. Not with words, with results. Machiavelli said you need to be both the lion and the fox. The fox recognizes traps. The lion frightens wolves. In your situation, the trap is needing others. The wolves are the doubters. Be smart enough to avoid dependence. Be strong enough to silence them with success. I'm not talking about toxic positivity here. I'm talking about cold, calculated use of negative emotion. You don't pretend everything's fine. You acknowledge the pain, the anger, the bitterness, and then you aim it. You point it at your work. Every hour you feel like giving up becomes an hour you push harder just to prove everyone wrong. This isn't healthy in the traditional sense, but neither is greatness. Greatness is built in conditions most people can't survive. Here's where most people fail. When you have zero support, you also have zero accountability. No boss checking your work, no team depending on you, no mentor asking for updates, just you and the mirror. Most people tell themselves they'll stay disciplined, and then they don't. Because without external pressure, they collapse. This is where Machiavelli's concept of virtù becomes critical. Virtù isn't virtue, it's capability, strength, the ability to impose your will on reality, even when reality is pushing back. To build that in isolation, you need protocol, not motivation, not inspiration, protocol. A rigid, non-negotiable structure that replaces external accountability with internal command. Here's what that actually looks like. You wake up at the same time every day, not because you feel like it, because the protocol demands it. You work in deep, uninterrupted blocks, not because you're inspired, because the protocol demands it. You consume only high-quality information, not because it's entertaining, because the protocol demands it. And at the end of every day, you sit down and review with brutal honesty. Did you execute, or did you make excuses? Did you move forward, or did you waste time? Did you protect your energy, or did you leak it into distractions? This daily audit is not about guilt, it's about pattern recognition. You're training yourself to see your own weaknesses before they destroy you. You're becoming your own commander. Machiavelli would call this self-governance. A prince who cannot govern himself cannot govern a state. In your case, the state is your future. If you cannot command yourself, you will never command respect, resources, or results. The protocol becomes your internal structure when the external world offers none. It's not about suffering for the sake of suffering. It's about creating conditions where success becomes inevitable because failure is not an option. And here's the paradox nobody talks about. The more you succeed alone, the more people will want to support you. But by then, you won't need them. You'll already have built the foundation. You'll already own the skills. You'll already have the confidence. Support becomes optional, nice to have, but not necessary. And that's when you've won, because you're self-sufficient. Machiavelli was right. It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But more than that, it's better to be independent than dependent, even if dependency feels easier in the moment. So here we are. You have no support. No one believes in you. No one is coming to save you. And that is exactly where you need to be. Because everything you build from this point forward is completely yours. No debt, no compromise, no explanation owed to anyone. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince from a palace. He wrote it from exile, forgotten, betrayed, dismissed, and it outlasted every kingdom of his time. Your isolation is not a prison, it's a workshop. Your silence is not weakness, it's strategy. Your lack of support is not a disadvantage. It's a filter removing everyone who would slow you down. The world is full of people waiting for permission, waiting for help, waiting for conditions to be perfect. You don't have that luxury, and that's your edge. If this resonates, subscribe, not for motivation, for clarity, and drop a comment with one word, ghost. That's the signal. That means you're disappearing for the next 90 days. No explanations, no updates, no posts. Just work. I'll see you on the other side when you're done building. Until then, become the kind of person who doesn't need to explain themselves. Become proof.